Welcome back to Blake's Craft Beer Podcast. My name is Blake Longfellow. I'm back here down in Cincinnati for the 2025 Craft Beer Summit with the Cincinnati panel. This is also episode 99. I'm getting close to 100, which I can't even believe I'm getting that close. But I'm with this awesome group here. Please introduce yourselves and tell me the brewery you're from. Anyone can start.
Jason Brewer, Wandering Monsters.
Keith Mcley, Sam Adams, Cincinnati Taproom.
Brittany Fray, Madtree Brewing.
Alex Rhinehart, Southridge Brewing.
Alex Bond, 50 West Brewing Company.
Kelly Montgomery, Third Eye Brewery.
Welcome, guys. Some of you guys were part of this last year, and I got some new voices as well, but everyone here has been, except for Alex from 50 West, but we will change that next year on a podcast together. But thank you for coming. I know 2025 has been an interesting year, to say the least, in what craft beer is. If you could describe it in one or two words, how would you describe 2025?
That's a good question. I said I was going to go last, but I thought of it. Experimental imbibement.
Okay.
That is tough to sum up in 2 words.
It could be more.
I'll say dynamic and swift changes.
Yeah, I think it's innovation for us and some growth as well.
I'd say customer service focus, quality, and just trying to drive more people into the tap room in these challenging times.
2 words.
That was more too. Very similar to what you guys are saying. Like flexibility. I know that's not really a descriptive, but like more of a, it's kind of what you have to be in this industry right now. And you said innovation. I'd have to agree with that for sure.
I would say maturation.
Ooh, it was just one word.
One word. So let's talk about evolution and stuff like that. So what's the biggest thing you guys are trying to figure out? I know the biggest thing is trying to figure out what the customer wants. So how do you guys are dealing with that? Anyone can start in this.
I'm probably the right person to talk about this, actually. So we do a lot of, for a long time at the brewery, it was kind of like based on hearsay and what so-and-so is doing, what the other brewery is doing. But what we really started doing recently is doing a lot of polling with our direct consumers, because the people that go to 50 West might not be the same people that go to Third Eye or Wandering Monsters. So getting their direct feedback and even just like sitting at the bar and listening to the conversations people have and what they're asking for has been pretty advantageous for us.
Yeah, we've definitely leaned more on our marketing team this year. I meet with them every 2 weeks, just kind of go over what's the feedback on social media, what are people asking for, what are they saying in the DMs, and share that with me. And that's really helped us kind of revamp our seasonal lineup for next year. And we're really pushing ourselves to do things that the consumer is screaming and telling us that they want.
Yeah, I would say it seems like the life cycle of products is much quicker at this point. I guess I would say that, whereas even 5 years ago you could have something that kind of was like on the shelf and was more a stable item, that you could kind of like put dollars and marketing investment and all of that behind to kind of grow. I think that environment's changed a lot, where it's like the consumer is expecting something that is honestly not only rotating, but is new and innovative, like everybody was saying around the table.
Yeah, I don't think we've changed a whole lot year over year. I mean, we still doing a lot of innovative. I mean, I think the creativity part, we're always doing new stuff and just kind of continuing on that path.
Yeah, kind of piggybacking off of that, I think what a lot of people say about coming into Wandering Monsters is that every time they come in, they see something new, they see something fresh, and I think that's just, everyone. Well, I was actually just talking about this with somebody on the way here about the untapification of the craft beer consumer, where they always have to be trying something new. Always, doesn't matter how great the last one was, have to try the new thing that's shiny and could be 10 times worse, but they're still going to try it because it's something new. And so providing that, not to say that every beer we make is 10 times worse, that was just an example, but giving them a new merch item to come in and want to try, giving them a new different experience, giving them a different beer or a different variant of a beer, different menu items is kind of what keeps driving people back in. And how long I think it's been going on for a while. I was thinking now it's becoming more like the ball is further rolling down the hill and getting bigger at this point.
And I think you bring up a good point of the idea of new experience, right? As we see kind of the maturation of this market and what role brew pubs and breweries play in this market, it's about experience. We've all known that, but I think now the customer is expecting that even more and more. And it doesn't necessarily have to be beer experience every time. Like you said, it could be what's the new shirt that Wandering Monsters has, or what's the new event that Madtree's throwing. I think that's what the consumer is starting to look to us to really have is, you're my place now. What's the experience you're going to give me that's different than the last time?
I think to build on top of that even more is like not just the experience. We're very much in the same boat as you. Like it's always, whether it's a new draft option or a new food option, or we don't rotate our merch as much as you guys do, but like hospitality in general has become incredibly important and very much a focus, because like you can wow them with the new item or the new beer that you put out, but like if you can make them really feel like they were valued in your tap room, they're lifelong fans. You know what I mean? And that's like really important, especially when you focus on people within like 1 to 2 miles within your brewery. So I guess hospitality has definitely been a focus of ours, at least at 50 West. I'm sure it has been for you guys too.
When you guys started brewing, obviously you wanted to be customer first, but how has the customer changed in the way you want to bring the beer out? Because it's between food and other things they want. How's the balance of what you are trying to do?
I'll jump on this one for a second. I think the way people are spending their dollars is changing. It's, people are very conscious about every dollar they're spending at this point. And so it's really kind of looking at like the buckets of how they want to spend those dollars and kind of following the data there and figuring out like, is it food that they're looking to spend more on? Is that going to impact beer sales, and kind of going from there. And I think that was less relevant, I guess, like 5-10 years ago. But at this point, I think it's kind of top of the consumer mind. And I think as a brewery or a tap room, you kind of have to show that you are thinking about that when making some decisions there.
To go along with that a little bit too, I think the consumer's looking at us for a story and of who we are, right? And I think in the past we could get away a little bit more with not really understanding who we were as a company. But I think now there's a better expectation of, I'm going to go spend my money at Madtree because of that story, or at Sam Adams, or whatever it is. And I think diving into that a little bit too is helping that consumer decide where that money is spent.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. I think the consumer is definitely choosing where their dollars are going. I go up to Deerfield quite a bit. We have a dog, and it's perfect tap room for that space. Your team has always been so welcoming to us there, and it's just created those positive impacts. And we've had the same experience at all of your other breweries too. We've become definitely, I think, more of a center for community. And I think we're all doing a really good job the past couple of years of concentrating on what different groups we can have welcomed into our tap room and creating those unique spaces and events for them. And that's what I've kind of seen like develop over the past couple of years within all of the breweries here locally.
When I left Listerman 4 years ago, and I was finishing my business plan to make a brewery. I wanted to make pastry stouts, super overly fruited sours, New England IPAs, and just focus on that. And while I think there still is a time and place for that, it's a very small time and place for that in today's market, and how it's shifted to what everybody else is talking about. It's about the hospitality. It's about nailing the guest experience when they're on site. It's about providing that, and so it's beer, and because no one is really going out for just beers anymore. As much as I love cracking beers with the boys, we're not going to go to a place that just has beers, even though we're just going to primarily drink beers. We're going to want to eat too. So it's like, what's that and that's just in the past 4 years that it's become very prevalent, to me at least, that this is the direction that we're going as a industry.
So I tell people a lot of times that I feel like we're moving towards that Europub model, right? Where it's that community center first, and you are selling beer, you're selling food, you're doing those things, but it's really that community first in establishing, what you mean to that community. And I think when we look around this room, we all understand what we mean to each one of the communities we sit in. And I think that's why, you see us still here versus some of the other places that aren't.
There's a reason you brought this guy to another podcast. He's very good. It's very good.
Yeah, no, he's been on several times, and yeah.
I guess to add on to that, I think that's such a sign of maturity in the craft brewing industry. I think it's hard often to put aside what you want to do, especially in an industry that's most people that are in this industry are here because they love craft and they love the audience and the crowd and the people it brings, but to set that aside and really do what your community needs is I think that's a sign of maturity. Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah, for sure. Actually, I was just going to mention the word maturation that you said at the beginning. Keep thinking about that one, because I've been in the industry for 13 years at this point, and thinking about, I do feel like 13 years ago you could open a tap room and be like, we're in an industrial park, we have pallet seats, and we don't serve food. And half our lineup is cans and the other half draft. And people would be like, cool, that's awesome. And I feel like if you open that now, that would be a tough sell, honestly. Maybe people would accept that out of the gate, but it would be we want to see progress, really quickly. We want a different experience. And so I do think we're maturing in that sense. We're really, to everybody's point here, we're having to really focus on what makes a good hospitality experience and what makes it a good overall experience, not just quality consistent beer, but what is the overall experience that we're driving at.
Yeah, it seems like today's beer consumer, they're looking for value. They're a little bit more health conscious than maybe they were a few years ago. We're selling way more of our session, lower ABV beers. The days of the $20 4-packs with all the fruit, that's more of an every now and then than doing that all the time. It looks like they're looking for value and just a more health conscious product.
So when we were talking about community, when you go into a certain place, is it automatically what that community wants, or is this something you have to learn as you go on what you thought the community wanted? Then when you get open, you're okay, we might have to change a few things.
So we just opened up Parks and Rec in February this year. And that was a lot of conversation with the Blue Ash City Council. What does that space need? Who are those consumers that are already going to Summit Park? And how do we build this business to fill that void of what your consumers that are going to that park want? So I think, and I would say Deerfield kind of did the same thing. And, all of our spaces down in OTR, you just kind of have to know what that community needs. Yeah, you'll learn along the way, adapt to it a little bit here and there, but you obviously want to start out as strong as possible and make a really good first impression and impact.
Yeah, I think we have to be just a little more calculated now. just because of the way that the brewing industry has evolved over time. I think, like you were saying, like you're sitting back in the day, you could open a place where you're sitting on pallets, and they're like, I don't know, sit on the floor, and everybody's like, cool. It's like one of those places. I think that was like kind of the appeal for me at first. It was like you felt like you were in a club, but now like with the investment that goes into each location you open, you just have to be really calculated and thoughtful. Smart's not the right word. I think thoughtful is a better word for it. And like know the community and what they're looking for, and work with the township. I'm sure you guys were up in Summit Park, work with them very closely on like, yeah, what are you guys looking for? Is it, you know, are we a good fit or not? And you kind of had to like evaluate from there.
Yeah, I think it's also just being a part of the community. You know, I grew up in Anderson. I went to high school at McNick on Beachmont Avenue, where our Wandering Monsters is on Beachmont Avenue. So, and then just moved back to Anderson with my wife to start a family. So it's kind of just like we knew the area. We knew there's a lot of great stuff for adults to do. There's a lot of great stuff for kids to do. There's not really a lot of great stuff for adults and kids to do in Anderson Township. You know, 50 West is close as the crow flies, but it takes 15 minutes. Like from our brewery to 50 West Brewery is like 25 minutes, just by the way you have to get there. If you're a bird, you can get there in 2 minutes, but not all of us are graced with the ability to fly. So Anderson was struggling for a place like that, and I wanted a place like that, so we built Wandering Monsters to be that place for my family and a community that I grew up in. So it's just also like knowing where you are and sticking to your roots and providing that place for what you want as well.
I mean, as the newest place in the room, you know, that was our conversation a lot was, you know, I had opportunities to go open a place somewhere else in Southwest Ohio, but it's like I don't understand those places. I'm like you, I'm from where I own the place, right? I grew up in Wilmington. You can almost see my parents' house from the brewery. So I purposely made that decision to go into that community in that specific neighborhood because I understood what that neighborhood needed. I understood what that community needed. So I felt that, you know, I could give them a product that they would enjoy and they liked, but I felt that they were already asking for it. I just had the skills to do it.
Yeah, I'll chime in and say our site at the Sam Adams Tap Room in OTR, it's a little bit different because OTR doesn't necessarily have like a ton of full-time residents. You know, it's a lot of people that come in for the weekend or, you know, are visiting from out of town and all of that. But the one community that we have really tapped into is the FC Cincinnati community. And, you know, hosting one of the supporter groups there, like, that's probably the most valuable, you know, community relationship that we have. And, like, it's a very organic relationship. A lot goes into it. And I think it's like, you know, as things change and things evolve, it's like you keep evolving those relationships too and figuring out how to keep growing all of that.
Are you ready for Sunday? I know it will be out before this, but with the big thing coming.
The big thing.
You know, Mcley and everything.
It hasn't sold out yet. The ticket prices are dropping, so I think they're trying to get more people in the stadium at this point. It's not enough. Yeah.
Hopefully, when this comes out, they'd be messy. But so when you guys have multiple locations, how do some certain beers sell better at one place than the other, or is it pretty much straightforward on what sells?
I would say, like, when we run the numbers, we can look at the top 5 beers, and it's pretty much the same thing every time, right? It's American Lager at the top, Coast to Coast IPA, Doom Pedal, and then probably Main Street or West Coast or something like that. But what catches fire at different locations, even like with 50 West Deerfield being as close as it is to 50 West on Worcester Pike, like people up in Deerfield really, really like light fruited beer, like low ABV fruited beer, and we see them sit down at Worcester Pike. We're like, whoa, it's a very similar demographic, very similar, like people that know our brand, and like for some reason up there, they're gravitating towards that more than others. But for the most part, it's a lot of the same. Like we're kind of selling the space and the experience more than the product itself. Like the beer ends up being like secondary almost. I hate to say that out loud, but like they know the beer is going to be good, but they're probably going to be like, all right, what do I have to do? Am I getting a lager and just hang tight, or am I laying into it with the coast to coast, or you know what I mean? But yeah, we see a little bit of deviation from one location to the other.
We're kind of in the same boat. It's light lager is probably 2-3 times the pints of the next best seller, which is Skygazer, and then you get into like Happy Amber and everything. We actually started Parks and Rec with a little bit heavier of a cocktail menu because we thought that might be what the people in Blue Ash wanted. And we were very pleasantly surprised. They wanted beer. So we took like 3 or 4 cocktails off the menu and are putting more beer one-offs and things up there. So that was a really fun lesson to learn. The first couple of weeks were a little rough because we kept running out of stuff that people were wanting up there. But we don't really see too much like differentiation between the 3 spots that we have. I think people are excited when they see like little one-offs at the other locations, but they're going there for the tried and true. They know the brands, and they're going there for the different experiences at each spot.
Yeah, it surprises me. I mean, we have 2 locations, Sharonville, Hamilton, kind of vastly different, but stats-wise, it's pretty much across the board. It's very similar what everybody's buying. There's not a whole lot of variation, so.
Our situation's a little bit different because my comparables are 2 taprooms in Boston, and we're the 3 that are part of the same Adams brand, but it's totally different. What sells in Boston does not sell in Cincy, and vice versa. In Cincy, it's been totally localized at this point. Like our top sellers are usually Cincy Lager or Cincy IPA. And that's been kind of a cool thing to see that like over time those have kind of risen to the top, whereas in Boston it's Flights, the consumer there, Flights are the best seller at both of the tap rooms there. Yeah.
So I want to go back to something you said, Alex, and kind of sidetrack us here for a second. You made the comment about like beer being second, right? And you're like, oh, I don't want to, like, it feels bad saying that, right? But I think that's another sign of like a maturation. As you and I were talking before this started, and you said to me, it's kind of humbling when you realize that these things do kind of play second best, whether it be food and beer and things like that, to the experience. But I don't think that's a lot of times people will say that and say, oh, I feel bad that I'm building the beer. But I don't think you are, because as a market, we've matured in the production of what we're doing enough that we can focus on those other things, right? Back in the day, you could open up a tap room and serve okay beer and you would be fine. Mm-hmm. Now the expectation is that every single person that puts out a beer is going to be good to great, right? That's just the market expectation now. So I think when we say, those things are second fiddle, it's not saying that any of us are making bad beer. It's just that all of us are making great beer now so that we can focus on those other things, but still keep making great beer.
So a lot of you guys are making light lagers or lagers in general. How do you try to get the non-craft beer to say, hey, this is just as good or better than what you or are you never going to win this battle?
Go for it.
This is actually one of my favorite questions to answer because of the market that I'm in. They are very much not craft beer drinkers to start. So most people that walk in just say, I want a Bud Light. And if we look at some of the Brewers Association data, and I apologize, I'm going to butcher some of these numbers, but when they ask, of age drinkers who don't drink craft beer, if you take that group of people, and it's something like 40 to 50% of those people, if you ask them to name one flavor from a flavor profile from craft beer, they can't. So it's not that they don't dislike craft beer, it's just they don't know what it is. They've never had an experience a lot of times. So the number of people that walk in my place and say, hey, I want to drink a Coors Light, but then walk out drinking, a dark Czech lager, is actually a pretty large group. And I think that's on us as brewers and as business people, getting our bartenders to understand that they are salespeople, and that, every single person that walks in and says, I don't drink craft beer, that we can send out drinking craft beer is one more person we've kind of converted over to, the Church of Craft Beer.
I'll mention off of that I think the line has become so blurred, and I think part of the reason why is that I don't think you have drinkers anymore that are like, I'm only craft or I'm only macro. I think you have a lot of people that are like, depending on the drinking occasion, depending on the value of what I'm buying out at market, depending on all of these variables, I could have, Miller Lite. I could also have, a barrel-aged beer or an imperial stout. I think like people are not necessarily just sticking in a single category at this point. And I think a lot of breweries are realizing that there's a lot of opportunity there, that it's like, we're kind of past the day that's like there's a drinker that's only devoted to a single brand and that's all they're going to drink, and like they're going to jump around a lot, and we kind of have to like capitalize more on those occasions and not necessarily on like just that brand loyalty overall.
I think you guys said it perfectly.
That's pretty thorough. Yeah, occasion is so.
Because I have some friends too, and all craft beer is IPA this. How do you like convince people like, hey, we are more than just IPAs? I mean, the evolution of craft beer I really enjoy is how much I've been enjoying lagers, just not light lagers, but mids and extra bitters and stuff like that. So how do you like convince people you guys are more than IPAs?
I think it kind of just goes back to those hospitality spaces. We have to get people in the door and excited to come into our space by an event that we have, and then we get to showcase, our other products that we are offering them. I mean, it's really hard to convince someone who's going to the grocery store to buy your beer over a macro beer, but if you can do something to bring them into your space, then you already have like the first barrier down, and then you get to show them everything else that you are capable of providing them.
I was going to talk, but you said exactly what I was going to say. Like the on-premise sale out of our tap rooms is not hard. Like I think people are very open to craft, even people that don't normally drink it. It's the off-premise, like buying at the grocery store, and the price point, I think, because the scale is just so massive, and like everybody in this room has said, people are pinching every penny when they can, and so they're thinking about how they spend that money, and they're like, can I really justify a $20 four-pack? I can do it like once in a while because I like the cool funky beers, but for the most part, yeah, the on-prem is a lot easier sale than off-prem, and getting people to go to Kroger and buy product there.
Yeah, I think one of the most important assets all brewery have is kind of that front of house. Your beer tender. Someone comes up and just wants whatever lightest thing we have on tap. They always bring out the lightest thing on tap. They also bring out a few other types of beers just to try. And we've throughout time they start liking a milkshake IPA or some other something. So I think your beer tenders are very important in that process. They're your first touch point. They're who everybody's interacting with when they come in. And I think it's a great way to get somebody to do something more than just your light lager. Give them a few other little sample of something else that they might like.
I think we have a bit of a unique opportunity here in Cincinnati in the sense that Cincinnati has a really rich brewing history, and there's a lot to kind of lean on there. And, we're kind of seeing like, pre-prohibition and stuff, there are so many breweries in the city, and we're kind of seeing like, we're all kind of talking about, hey, we're serving our small little local communities. We're kind of seeing a return to that a little bit. But I think there's a lot of nuance there to what you're talking about, that like, if somebody likes a light lager, you can be like, hey, why don't you try out a Kolsch? Why don't you try out this Czech lager? Like, there's 10 different styles we could offer you that are not just, your American macro light lager, and maybe you'll like one of these. And a lot of these have a lot of history behind them, too. You're drinking something that's like a style that, is potentially 100 years old or more. So I think there's a lot of cool, like, stories to tell there, to go back to what we were saying at the beginning.
Because one thing I kept thinking back on was before COVID, bars and some types of restaurants used to do these tap takeovers where a bar would say, "Hey, I want things of your beer, and we'll show you." Reps came out or brewers came out, but after COVID, you hadn't really seen that anymore. Is that something that has died, or do people still say, "Hey, I want to do a tap takeover," or how do you guys? Because I think if things went back to the local bars or something, maybe that might help out. I don't know.
I mean, it's to answer that. For me, it's 2025. Tap takeovers have been happening since the dawn of craft beer. I think it's about getting more creative than just a tap takeover. Is what's driving people in into events and into these events and into these things. So it's it's still fun to do tap takeover. I still love it. If you want to do a tap takeover, I'll come out and we'll do it. But it's not driving the people like it used to because everyone has cupboards full of glassware. Myself, I'm in a one in, one out policy with my wife, so I better not bring home that pint glass from that tap takeover. So it's just it's just about finding that different experience and trying to be unique and giving the guests something they haven't seen before or something they want to do again, but they've already done 100 tap takeovers, so it's not. That's how I see it.
Yeah, I think with the tap takeovers, we're 2025 now. 5 years ago, 8 years ago, there were a lot of people that hadn't even had your flagships yet. It seems like everybody in Cincinnati is they've had a lot of our beers now. It's not, so if you're going to do a tap takeover, you almost have to bring something new and exciting or something a little bit out of the ordinary or provide some sort of experience.
So, Brittany, one thing you mentioned on was growth. So what are some growths you guys are seeing in craft beer? I know we've been a little negative, but let's talk about the growth in craft beer.
I think for us personally, the growth has been on-prem. It obviously helps when you open up a new location, but...
What is on-prem?
On-premise. Thank you, Jason. Yeah, we're all just doing our lingo here. So on-premise, so going to the actual physical tap room or brewery space. We definitely have seen some growth there, but I think it's just going back to that intentional putting things together for your community that's around you to attract people back into your spaces. And I honestly have seen every single one of us in this room be very intentional about that. But that's where we're really seeing the more substantial growth. But I think it's, again, like what you were saying, Alex, it's going back to more than just the beer. It's other things that we're intentionally doing to bring in and really strive for that growth within our spaces.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It's that we're seeing growth in our tap rooms on premise, like we talked about, beyond beer, the things that breweries didn't make before, like vodka seltzers and the THC seltzers and the hop water and the non-alcoholic beer. We're seeing growth in that category. That's supplementing some of the loss and the national decline of beer sales in general. But yeah, like you said, being intentional with like what we're doing in the tap, like you end up doing stuff in the tap room you never thought you would end up doing. We're building an ice rink right now. Like you guys built the beer mystery outside. I saw it. If you told your marketing team 8 years ago, like, hey, you're gonna have to build a tree out of, like, wait, why? And you're like, because there's a community engagement. Like get people in here, give them a reason to come here. You got to do the extravagant sometimes.
I think there's a point to make about controlling what you can control, where you can control what's inside these four walls very well and execute that. Once the experience or once the beer leaves here, it's as much as you think you're in control of that, it's not. It's in your distributor's hands, and then whatever the consumer does with it once they get it was vastly different than, could be exactly what you want, but it could be totally not what you want. So, just controlling what you can control and making sure that that's executed flawlessly is a big piece of that.
One thing, when I did last week, when I did the Columbus panel, they talked about community and craft beer. Do you still feel that as strong as it has ever been in craft, and how important that still is for community between you breweries?
Like community between like
Yes.
us as a brewery network.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I would say no, but that's just me personally because of where we are, because of maturation, and back in the day, I feel so old. Been in the craft beer world for like 12, 15 years now. Everyone was in the same boat. Everyone was growing exponentially. Everyone was, selling beer hand over fists. And then, things changed. Breweries got bigger. People left to go to other breweries. And then for me personally, I started a family. I have a wife and kids. I can't go to 3 or 4 breweries every 3 or 4 days of the week and hang out with people as much as I would love to. Apparently my wife and kids love me and they want me to be home. I don't get it, but that's where we are. So, does that mean that I care less about our industry or the people that are in it? Absolutely not. But does that mean that I'm as involved as I'd like to be? And I was 5-10 years? No, because we're all in different, places. Kenny and Brady at Madtree, I hung out with them weekly back in the day. I was telling somebody the other, Charlie out in the tap room, that I legit cut my finger on an old Madtree tap handle, pouring myself a beer at Madtree 1.0. That's just the things were different back then. It doesn't mean that they're worse now. It's just different than what it was. So I think the community's strong, and I think that if I call anybody in this room, they would pick that phone call up and help me how I can, but it's just how often I see these people is way less than I like, and it's just because we're in different business points and different life points than when the beer boom happened, 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's like your childhood best friend. And how you're your high school friends or your college friends or whatever, like your life just gets busy as craft beer has matured, and you're like, it's not that you became worse friends, you're just like, oh, we don't talk as much, but when we do, it's like we never left. You know what I mean? It's kind of like that. Like we used to do a lot of collaborations. We don't have as much time for it anymore because we're just focused on different things within our operation. But yeah, I don't think it's like saying no, we're not as close as we used to be is not a negative thing. It's just like, hey, we're all doing our own thing and trying to perfect what we're good at.
So going back to the maturation.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of like it's that your best friend you haven't seen in 10 years and you guys just start off right where you left off.
Because even though like the people like I drink with, that has become less and less. I think people are getting married and stuff like that. I'm still single. It's fine. I still got beer. I still got you guys. But it shows what the maturing market. I don't know if we use that word yet today, but it feels like the word has been maturing and stuff like that. So Alex or Kelly, since you guys are going to be in this, so how are you guys navigating the federal and state laws of THC? I know, Kelly, you just announced it a little bit ago, but
I'm so not the right person to talk about that, but I kind of can. It's been a whirlwind. There was like a ban and a pause to the ban and then a federal ban, and it's just like, oh my gosh, what do we do? But like over the course of this, not much has changed in our sunflower THC sales. We've kind of just like gone with the punches. Thankfully, the owner of our company, Bobby, he's been like very hands-on with the pushing for reasonable regulations, which I think is what everybody wants in that field. It's tough. Do you want to?
Yeah, I can. I think a little bit different than the 50 West story, just because we literally just got into it. We spent a boatload of money on ingredients, the THC, all the stuff that goes into making it. And then like literally the next week there was a ban and we're like, what just happened? It wasn't anything on our bingo card. So each week, each day, like just yesterday, they were going to ban it completely. They were going to follow the federal ban, and now it's okay and it's going to be great. And every day, every hour is different. And trying to operate a business in those conditions is challenging at best.
I think another important part of that conversation is like who do you? There's a reason that we're coming out with these products, right? And it's not because we're just like, why not give it a shot? It's because we're seeing the consumer behavior change and what people want change. Like people are going like, I can't wake up anymore on a Thursday morning hungover. I have to be an adult now because, I mean, I can't say the word again because we've said it a million times now, but we're maturing. We got to be new people. But like the consumer's changing and they prefer this product to others because of the lack of residual effects that they don't care for. That doesn't even mean necessarily that these people are not drinking craft beer anymore. They're just choosing when they drink craft beer and when they don't. I don't know if you want to talk about like who are you seeing in your tap room, Kelly, that's drinking these products?
I think the new generation, it's gotten, I think, really health conscious, and I think people that have never tried marijuana a day in their life, I don't want to mention any family members' names that are, retired, and now they love that. It's a new thing. I think every brewery kind of has the equipment to do it. And I think breweries are really good at flavors. I think it makes sense for breweries to, maybe not with all the crazy law changes every other day, but I think it makes sense for some breweries to dive into it. And it's another thing that you can offer your customers, another thing to bring people in.
So the people that aren't in it, is this part of the reason why you guys haven't gone in it, or has it even been a discussion on should we do this or not?
Sam Adams, you want to answer that one for us?
Sure. I'll put in my Jim Cook hat for a second here.
I'm not trying to get you in trouble.
We are not doing it statewide at this point. However, we do have a cannabis division that's up in Canada, and the strategy there was that if it ever gets rolled out on a larger scale, that we would have R&D, like product development wing that was working on it actively in a spot that it is federally legal. So it is something that's on our radar. I don't think that we would dive into it anytime statewide until it is like extremely buttoned up from a legal perspective, just because too much risk there for the size of our company, honestly, to put it in a straightforward way. That being said, like on a personal level, it's disappointing to see how much everything is ping-ponged. It's like, to your point, it's like, hey, there's a reason why people are brewing it at this point, like is consumer demand, and it's a $20 billion industry at this point that is on the table, and it's kind of like, it's disappointing if that impacts jobs and all that. That's like terrible. So I will note, like, we have not seen nationally in America yet any kind of like big player in cases. Like everything's very fragmented at this point, which is interesting because we didn't really see that with beer. Like even, if you go back to the early point of craft beer, like there were pretty big players out of the gate, and we're really not seeing that at this point with THC. It's like you go to a case in the indie store and it's like 50 brands in that case, which is, it really is truly the Wild West.
Yeah, I think part of that, at least for us as an individual single place that doesn't distribute, is what are the insurance implications for this? We had Rhinehart rep. Rhinehart has a great NA product, and we carry the NA product, and he keeps trying to pitch us on the THC that they have, and we're like, we don't have the insurance to have THC beverages, and because it costs more than what we would sell. And then I guess he made a joke that there's this new THC player that's following him around, to all the accounts that he goes to, and they came in, and that's what our bartenders now say, because we get a lot of people coming in. It's like, we don't have the insurance to carry this, and they're like, wait, you need different insurance to have this? And it's like, how, like, some of the, I think everyone here knows this, right? That's just there's just a lot of players that are out, because it is the Wild West, that don't know this, that there are. I didn't know this at first either. We had THC products, and then shout out to Del Hall, pointed out, like, hey, you need insurance on this, here's how much it costs. And I was like, wait, it costs that much? Like, we just won't carry it. And until all of that gets figured out, is where the national players jump in, and where, like, a small guy, like, it was like $300 or $400 a month to have insurance to carry these products. And it's like, it's just, for us, it just didn't make sense. A lot of places it does, and that's great, and I'm not knocking it at all, but I think that it still has a lot of ways to mature, as I point to Alex. And it's like craft beer was, but alcohol laws have been around forever, and so it's just like, it's got a long way to go to figure out all these in and outs to really make it accessible to everybody.
It's an infant at this point.
Yes, it's crawling on its knees at this point. But
So the next one is, how are you guys navigating between the tariffs, between the grain, the aluminum, and everything? What is the biggest challenge in navigating this without raising costs to the consumer, which I'm assuming is probably closer now than probably has ever. I know we're still, as a state of Ohio, we're still pretty low compared to other states. So how do you guys navigate this?
Jim, do you want to take this one? I mean, we're pretty small, but it's not to say we don't see things, and we just do incremental. I mean, like, we have to increase prices, or else we don't exist as a business. There's only so much we can take on, and we've taken on so much, and we've kind of reached that point where prices have to come up, or we just can't exist as a business, and it just is what it is. And again, that's another thing you talk about. Kelly just mentioned about the whole THC thing changing on a dime, and like, this has changed. Tariffs have changed. God, I'm so glad I'm such a small brewery. I don't have to worry about that. I don't have to fill a silo. I get to buy bags of grain. It's just like the tariffs have changed so much and so often and so quickly, and then not quickly, and then quickly again. Luckily, I think a lot of our suppliers have seen it coming and have over ordered and have a big inventory of things, but it's hit some places that the price increases have to happen. They have to go somewhere. We just can't keep eating these cost increases. So
yeah, I will say I won't comment company wide on the tariffs, because I'm not in the place to necessarily do that. I'm not on the finance team, but I will say that if you look at the larger umbrella of just like suppliers raising costs in general, and I'm talking not just ones impacted by tariffs, but I think across the board, probably everybody has experienced, most suppliers have raised costs by 5% or more in the past few years. And I think, to go back to that word maturity again, I think that running a hospitality location, it just really makes you focus even more on running an efficient business, and like really focusing on those levers that you can control, and so you're really looking at all of those, and sometimes that comes out as a cost that gets raised for the consumer. Sometimes it's just tightening our belts with what we can do with less, but I think there is a real conscious effort to look at that and actively look at that all the time to make sure we're kind of like putting ourselves in the best position for success.
So part of my job is I work with our vendors, and I contract all of our raw materials. It's been consistent conversations with our Zambiel, who supplies our overwraps and our case trays, so all of our cardboard, our aluminum with Crown. It's just those consistent conversations with them of, all right, well, this changed today. What does this mean for me as your customer? And so I've been very intentional about those conversations, so then I can go back to, the people higher up than me running all of this and being able to give them the information. It's been a struggle, and we definitely have had a lot of conversations about our prices, what we're comfortable with, and majority of the time we're in a boat right now where as long as we're hitting somewhere within this margin percentage, we'll be comfortable for right now. But that doesn't mean that tomorrow is going to be the same story. It sucks having to raise your pint prices, especially like on a light lager. No one wants to pay $8+ for a light lager when you can go to the grocery store and buy the macro beer at a much lower price. But to keep these businesses open and these local people employed, that's something that unfortunately, we have to have those conversations consistently.
Because the argument on people won't pay. People complain paying $7 or $8 for a beer, but they'll go buy a $14 or $15 cocktail. So how do you tell people, hey, it's gonna be all right?
I think that one's very much occasion based. I think when you're buying your cocktail, it's not you're probably not going to your go-to brewery a couple times a week after work and expecting to spend a lot of money. You want to go in and grab a beer and chat with your buddies and then take off, right? I think when you're getting a cocktail, it's a different occasion that you're willing to spend that money on. You go into that with the mindset of all right, I'm probably going to get kind of screwed over on a $14 cocktail, but it's going to be great. And, I don't go out to dinner very often, so let's do it. But it is a good comparison because they're both the, what standard drink is what they called it in high school growing up. But yeah, I think it's more about the occasion, what you're willing to spend. And it's very hard for people to grasp, myself included, to why you would go to the place that is making that product and why it's so expensive at the source. And it's just what we've been talking about. It's the raw materials and the labor that goes into making it and all that kind of stuff.
So what do you see in 2026? We're coming into 2025, but what do you still see the same things happening, or you think we're going to improve, or is it going to get worse? Hopefully better. Mo.
You gotta say better. You can't say worse, you have to say something positive.
So, when we do look kind of at the global economic situation, I think, one of the things you've heard us talk about are these fluctuations and unpredictability and us being able to control the things we can control. But I think, when you look at some of the predictions from Deloitte or Moody's or any of these places, they don't know what to do either, right? I was reading an article the other day from Moody's, I think, and they're like, well, here's what on a typical year we would predict. Here's kind of high end, low end. We can usually nail this kind of close, but they ended their article with going, we don't know. So plan for the worst, right? So I think, what I foresee us seeing in 2026 is a lot of us just kind of controlling what we can control, trying to make it through, and seeing what, we can do moving after that. I think that's the reality of the situation.
I think everybody here is set up for success because they're already in the know that their growth is within hospitality and innovation and things like that. It'd be a little alarming if somebody here was 2016 is the year for barrel-aged Belgian doubles or something like that. We'd be oh shoot, we got to talk about this. There's a place for it in your tap room, but maybe not all your focus. But I think the fact that we've all recognized that on-premise hospitality and really honing in on your brand is kind of where you have opportunity for growth. And I think there's positivity there. It all sounds a little negative but I think it's just us being realistic about the state of the industry and where the opportunity for growth is.
This year beer is down collectively, macro, craft, everything combined, almost 6%, which is no one predicted that. Nobody thought that would be kind of where the year headed out at. That has not happened since Prohibition. And I think if you if you look at it as potentially a one-time event, I think it would be extremely rare, on the positive side, for that to happen 2 years in a row. So I'm personally optimistic, that next year we'll see better trends within the industry itself. It does sound, really positive that all of us around the table have found ways to grow. Like, even if it's only segments of our business or whatever, we're all finding like space to grow within that. So I think that's a really positive sign. But yeah, I would be shocked if the beer industry saw the same declines next year, just based on, history, based on data we've seen long term. So I'm optimistic.
So what are some other big styles you see? You've seen West Coast or Black IPAs coming back. You think Saisons are coming back, or Pale Ale, or Belgiums, or what's your next big thing in beer-wise? Do you think the style that might come back, or is there a new style that's you think could be popping up?
I think one thing we've kind of noticed is just, paring down, take a flagship and knock it down a few ABVs, from 7% to 5%. The 5% beers have been really selling well for us. So still have the flagships, but experiment with some new kind of lower ABV products.
Yeah, we're in the same boat. 5% or under, and then 9% or higher. I think the zebra striping is definitely going to be a thing next year.
I'm just loving seeing everyone make milds again.
And meat beers, don't forget your meat beer.
I've been pleasantly surprised to see that the things that have sold well at the taproom over the last 3 months are like styles that are kind of throwback styles. We put a brown ale on recently, and that did pretty well. And that's frankly kind of an outdated style a bit. Like, people kind of moved on from that a bit, but we saw some positive traction with that. We did a Czech lager, and like that did well as well. So I'm just kind of encouraged to see that it seems like some of these more traditional styles are doing well again.
Just to piggyback on that, I think our brown ale is our biggest seller right now. It just passed everything that we're doing. So the brown ale is back.
Our brown ale is probably our number 2 seller right now.
Yeah. You're the brown ale.
Brown ales never died, just so you know. Especially double brown ales.
But does this just show how beer is just fluctuates on what people want? People want the trendy, then all of a sudden they just want normal beer. How do you guys navigate the trendy versus your normal beer? What's the biggest balance you guys see?
I think there's a time and a place for both, because like while I myself gravitate more towards lagers now, as a lot of people are, I still have time for the big hazy double IPAs that are from wherever in Boston. But I think like as we're growing up and as like we become as tap rooms a part of our immediate community, our head brewer Ryan, he was actually out in he was in, I think it was in Ireland somewhere, but he was like there's pubs every 3 blocks, right? And they're all hyper local. Like, the person that lives next to this one is not going to the one that's 2 blocks down. He's going to the one that's even closer. And they all do like very, very sessionable beer there. And so like while we're also like our tap rooms are focusing on our immediate community, we're also looking at lower ABV beers in the same way that they've grown way ahead of us, because beer's been a massive part of European culture for the longest time. And I think it's just like kind of the next step, but I don't think it means like there's never a time for big stouts and funky styles and experimentation.
Well, I thank you guys so much for your time here tonight. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for coming out, and always make me feel welcome coming in, and serving me a couple brews. And all you guys make amazing beers, and I can't wait for you guys to be back on soon.
Yeah.
Thanks,
All right.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
All right. Cheers, guys.